Welcome back. It's Wednesday, February 12th, and today we have a serious concern with Tropical Cyclone Zelia officially developing off the northwest WA coastline. Serious concern is arising for the development into a severe tropical cyclone with an impending threat of landfall near Port Hedland to De Grey. This event is developing and may present an extremely dangerous, life-threatening situation to this region. In today's forecast, we're going to provide a detailed breakdown of everything you need to know with Tropical Cyclone Zelia. Jumping straight into the Bureau of Meteorology's official forecast track map, we can see that Tropical Cyclone Zelia is already a Category 2 system at 11 a.m. today, where it will likely remain a Category 2 system throughout this evening and into the early hours of tomorrow morning. However, by around midday tomorrow, we can expect that the system will have intensified into a severe Category 3 tropical cyclone, where we can see this outlined sort of brownish color in a shaded circle region, indicating the development of very destructive wind gusts, with the outer red circle region indicating destructive wind gusts. The system appears to continue as a Category 3 system before landfalling sometime possibly around Friday or possibly even into Saturday at this stage. Possible landfall areas are likely, however, there is great uncertainty within the modeling at the moment as to where exactly would see a landfall. Right now, we can really expect anywhere between Wallowa Downs and Karratha along this outlined orange shaded region, which indicates the current tropical cyclone warnings where gales are likely to develop within the next 24 hours or so. Now, we can also see the yellow outline shaded region, which indicates mainly for the further inland towns that gales are likely to develop within the next 24 to 48 hours. On a landfall as a Category 3 severe tropical cyclone system, we can expect that within the innermost circle region, within the vicinity of 50 kilometers or so from the internal eye wall, that wind gusts in excess of 220 kilometers an hour could be expected from this system, with sustained wind speeds up to 160 kilometers an hour possible with this system, which again is indicated by the innermost circled region. Here's how things currently look. If we pull up the GFS, the latest GFS model run, we can see that this system begins tracking in a sort of southward to southwesterly direction over the next couple of days, which is being steered by some mid-level ridging within the center of the country, which generates this sort of southerly flow that pushes the cyclone down the Kimberley to Pilbara coastline. Now, as we drag this out throughout the next couple of days toward potential landfall around Friday or so, we can see this system actually intensifies quite rapidly into as low as a 924 millibar system. This is actually probably ahead of what the Bureau of Meteorology's official forecast track map indicates right now, where it develops a Category 3 tropical cyclone somewhere along this Pilbara coastline. However, some of these global models are currently expecting a higher end system now based off these latest model runs from this morning. If we also pull up the European model for comparison, we can see that as we drag this out through to around Friday as well, this model also indicates a fairly low central pressure of around 940 millibars, which is a little bit higher than what the GFS is indicating. However, still probably ahead of where the Bureau of Meteorology's official forecasts lay at the moment. This system is quite slow moving due to the weak ridging that we spoke about just before, that's steering it in a sort of southerly to southwesterly direction. Given that the sea surface temperatures within the Pilbara to Kimberley coastal regions are very, very high at the moment, in fact, they're near 31 degrees C at the moment, there is good potential that this system could certainly develop further into a higher end tropical cyclone system as it moves through this very, very favorable warm water that allows it to really bring up those big thunderstorms and help it wrap around its center of circulation, intensifying itself. Now, as it also moves closer to the coastal region, the shear that it's currently in is only moderate at the moment. However, as it does progress toward that coastal region, it in fact drops off further, which will really help it develop and ramp up in intensity. We pull up our high-res tropical cyclone models. This is HAFS A. We can see this system has had a massive uptrend on this forecast model, which is the most recent run at 0Z. In fact, this is indicating a tropical cyclone with a central pressure just off the Kimberley and Pilbara coastline around Friday or so of as low as 899 millibars. Now that is just ridiculously low in terms of pressures with tropical cyclones. In fact, that would likely represent a Category 5 tropical cyclone system. Now, is this plausible? Probably not. This seems very, very extreme on the scale of things, and it certainly hasn't intensified in a huge jump since yesterday's forecast runs where they were still actually very, very low in pressure, sort of between the 930 and 920 millibar range on these high-res tropical cyclone models. However, this has had a significant uptrend and is now actually below that 900 millibar threshold, which would certainly be near catastrophic if this were to develop. Now, is it reasonable? Probably not. I would expect that it's somewhere much higher than this in terms of actual pressure that we see, but it's definitely a concerning trend to watch. Now, if we pull up the HWEF, which is another one of the tropical cyclone models, we can see that this has also had a major uptrend where it was sitting at around 930 millibars again yesterday, and in fact today it nears 906 millibars just before it crosses the coast, landfalling somewhere probably around between Port Hedland and Karratha as around a 911 to 918 millibar system. Now, this is again very, very significantly low pressures and would represent one of those very, very high intensity systems, possibly between a very high in category 4 if not a certain category 5 system. Now, is this reasonable? Again, it's hard to be sure and what to read of this. The global models have certainly also uptrended in their intensity with these systems, likely indicating a category 4 is more probable than the category 3 that the official track map currently indicates. However, these high-res tropical cyclone models are indicating very, very significantly low pressures. Now, it would be very unlikely to see this actually eventuate within reality, but it could be on the slight realm of possibility with very, very high sea surface temperatures, and particularly if this system was able to stall long enough and develop very slowly through that weakening steering wind and push through these warmer waters in that sort of southwesterly tracking direction. Could it happen? Maybe, but it's certainly one to watch, and it's certainly not a promising trend if this continues to verify on the next couple of model runs. Jumping into the expected hazards and threats, pulling up the European models accumulated rainfall for the next couple of days, we can see that by around Friday or so into Saturday that a significant amount of rainfall will fall along this Pilbara coastline between Karratha and potentially as high as Broome, but certainly through this coastal strip centered around Port Hedland, De Grey, and possibly slightly further east of Port Hedland. Now, some of these locations could certainly be picking up values along the coastal strip in excess of 500 millimeters of rainfall, but notwithstanding the fact that this rainfall will significantly push further inland as the tropical cyclone begins to track southward over the coastal areas, continues as it weakens, and then eventually as a tropical depression. Some of this rainfall, particularly through the inland areas of locations including Marble Bar and Telfer, could be looking at 200 millimeters or more within the next couple of days. Some of these isolated locations could be looking at 200 to 300 millimeters of rainfall, certainly through some of these areas that are already very saturated over the last couple of weeks. In fact, near a thunderstorm near Marble Bar caused minor riverine flooding effects within just a matter of 30 minutes the other night. So only the environment is conducive for both flash and riverine flooding effects within these northwestern towns. Something to certainly keep an eye on depending on how fast this system actually does track. If it's slightly slower, we could be looking at potentially higher rainfall rates than what are indicated here. The more inland towns as well could be looking at higher rainfall totals depending on if the system does slow down, as well as if it continues a more southerly track or progresses southwesterly or slightly more southeasterly. As discussed earlier, there is a level of uncertainty on just where the system directly impacts or crosses the coastline over the next couple of days. This will have a significant impact on where exactly sees the highest rainfall totals. However, at this stage, this is the best estimate from the Euro. If we just quickly switch to the GFS's indicated rainfall accumulations, we can see that originally the tropical cyclone under the GFS was actually slightly slanted to more of an easterly position of Port Hedland as opposed to the Euro. So it was further westward of Port Hedland. Now we can see this is also representative in the accumulated rainfalls, where the rainfall totals are slightly shifted toward the west and certainly more toward the inland towns of Tom Price as opposed to the Telfer area, but certainly rainfall totals still significantly higher within these inland regions. Tom Price looking at potentially as high as 200 millimeters, Marble Bar possibly exceeding 200 millimeters, Telfer in the sort of 70 to 80 millimeter range, and then certainly along the coastal strip much higher, potentially exceeding 300 millimeters in some places. We switch back to our European model and have a look at the wind threats from this system. This is our 6 hourly max at 10 meter above ground level wind gusts for the region. Now if we drag this out, we can see the cyclone certainly becoming more intense as we progress toward Friday. So if we drag this out right toward, we can see the model estimates of 232 kilometers km/h maximum wind gust, with some of these areas potentially exceeding that just offshore. This model indicating here 267 km/h wind gusts. Any of these wind gusts within this region, especially as it crosses to landfall exceeding 200 km/h, would have devastating effects on any infrastructure, homes, property, or potentially lives within this region. Now, if we switch to the GFS for the same time slot on Friday, we can actually see very similar results. In fact, the model here indicating wind gusts around that 220 km/h threshold. And that's going to do it for today's video. We will be sure to further update when we know more about this system, including its track path, intensity, and exact position of a landfall. Certainly, there is still a good degree of uncertainty about what could potentially happen and how things progress from here, especially regards to the intensity of the tropical cyclone, with model guidance now indicating a higher intensity than what the Bureau of Meteorology's official track currently indicates. So it'll certainly be interesting to have a look tomorrow as to what they see as well. We'll certainly be covering off a lot more on this system over the next 2 to 3 days, depending on when the landfall date is, whether that be Friday or into Saturday. Definitely provide emergency updates as needed and required if things change considerably between now and the next forecast video. We'll also be going live likely on Friday for the tropical cyclone landfall crossing, depending on when and where it does cross. For now, that'll pretty much do this video. As always, appreciate you guys watching the video, and I will join you in the next tropical cyclone update.